Hello everybody, welcome back to the Jerbee Apiary. Yep, it's time to get Hive 2 restarted and also start up Hive 3. So it's time to head on down to the post office and pick up those bee packages. I was a little bit nervous about these being shipped up from Georgia, and I'd heard about some packages having some issues here recently. But not in this area with these bees because they look fantastic. The one box had a little bit more dead on the bottom than the other one. The other one had hardly any whatsoever. But overall, definitely less than an inch, and they seem to look pretty good, so time to get them home. I knew I was going to be using some sugar water for feeding them since they are new install, so I got that going before I left to pick up the bees so it can cool. So what I used was just 1-to-1 ratio of water and sugar, heated up into a nice boil, and I let it cool off. I did use a little bit of an ice water bath in order to let it cool off a little bit faster, but just regular white granulated sugar, don't use brown sugar or anything else like that, and figure I'd give them a little bit of a boost.
Okay, so we're back at the apiary. Hive 1's buzzing around over there, bringing in some pollen. We have Hive 2 and 3 to get repopulated now. So what I'm going to do is rearrange the frames a little bit because I'm not collecting any swarms in here and using them as swarm traps anymore. I'm going to put in a feeder because they're just coming straight off of being delivered. I think a little sugar water might do them well. And also put in a couple of frames from Hive 2 that had a dead out that I have been keeping in a freezer here since the spring, in order to give them a little bit of a boost and some drawn out comb. Also going to use some better comb in order to try to help them a little bit too with less drawing out. And yeah, we'll see how things go with that. I did cut a couple of covers for the sugar water feeders, the frame feeders that are for this Layens Hive. And yeah, it'll be kind of exciting. I know the bees are in swarm mode right now whenever they're being delivered with the queen like that in the cage. I'm still wearing my outfit and everything because I'm still getting used to this, and I'm okay with that. But anyways, I hope you enjoy. Okay, time to pop the top on one of these, get the queen out, put her on one of the frames, and then we're ready to try to get them installed.
The Hive 3 installation went pretty well. So you pop the top off of your package and then you fish out the sugar water that maintained them throughout the course of their trip up from Georgia. It can be a little bit tricky at times. Try not to crush any bees. You probably have to brush it off a little bit to set it down. And then fish out the queen cage. So the queen cage is held up with a band. I usually cut it. You could also pry off where the staple holds it in place. Now this queen does have attendants inside of the cage that was, well, attending to her. And you can see here the cork that then goes to the sugar candy that is at the bottom of the cage that is keeping the queen in place. And so you need to remove that cork so that the bees in the hive can eat that sugar candy gradually in order to free her from the cage. Now the queen cage needs to be in a horizontal orientation in the hive in this instance. And the reason why is because if you were to remove that cork and then have it facing downward, and the attendants that are inside of the cage were to die, they would plug up that hole and she would not be able to get out and the queen could feasibly die in there. So you want to do it in a horizontal orientation. I wire it up with just some wire. After that's done, you put it into place, put the frames back together and close it up. And I closed up the sugar water feeder with a piece of plywood before I had my top bar set up. This year, instead of shaking the bees into the hive, I'm just putting the opening of the package into the opening entrance of the hive. That way, we don't put a bunch of dead bees in the bottom of the hive and let them march in naturally without that trauma. And then also I can do mite counts on the dead bees that stay back in the cage.
These bees, I can say, are already acting a little bit different. They're not quite as clingy and flying out. Queen is still alive with her attendants inside. Don't forget to remove your cork. where their sugar candy is. I'm sure there are better methods for attaching the queen in a layens like this. This is just something I came up with kind of last year. It worked, so I'm okay with trying that again. There she is, fired up and ready. So I'm gonna head in for a bit. We'll check back in on the March as they try to refill the hives up and follow the queens in a little bit, and we'll see how they are. So coming up here now, definitely most of the bees have gone in. There's a few scragglers here and there. Overall, this has been successful and no dead bees in the hive. And we can test those for mites. What's going on inside? Clean up top here. I'm able to close that entrance over there. Everybody's escaped that might have got stuck in there. I don't have the gap at the bottom right now just because I'm waiting for things to settle for the package installation, but you know, I can undo that at a different date.
This is kind of cool. This is a worker bee that is fanning the queen's pheromones out to call the other bees into this hive.
Here we are, it's about 8:30 at night. Things have calmed down quite considerably. Looks like everybody's pretty much in at this point. Just had a small bear test out the electric fence. It learned a pretty valuable lesson, I would say. It let out quite a yell. Mama was standing right up at that tree line back there, probably about, I don't know, maybe another 30 feet past the trees. It looked like she had at least one other cub with her. I was just kind of looking at me, but kind of kept going. I made some noise and didn't really seem to bother after that, but I am in here with the fence on just because maybe I can be a little paranoid. The fence energizer I am using now is a 2 joule as far as its overall output. It is on a utility pole and it is hardwired actually into the house. So it's got a little bit more gusto, and I'm sure that Bear will remember that pretty well. At least I hope so. It'll keep them away a little better.